we have to touch on this Justin Long Intel ads thing that he's been doing. And for those that don't remember, he was the I'm a Mac guy from the Mac versus PC ads. And there's a certain curiosity to these ads that, like, to me, he kind of looks like he's being held hostage, even though he's probably being paid $1 gazillion to, you know, claim that Intel-based Windows PCs are far better than what the M1 Macs are. And yes, they've taken certain points of view to highlight that, you know, there are, like, for instance, form factor advantages. You know, you don't get as much variety with a Mac, or you don't get gaming on the Mac, or the M1 Macs don't currently support it, like multiple external monitors and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But the thing that kind of got to me was, one, the specific selection of him was a very targeted sort of approach to Intel to fight back against what Apple was doing. And to be fair, I don't know if selecting him was really necessarily the right way to go about it. But on the other side, I do appreciate that Apple was quite liberal with their interpretation of data in their keynote presentation about, you know, their 98%. The M1's 98% faster than, you know, every other chip on the you know, that exists, even though they didn't have any numbers or data to support it. So it's like anything it's like an argy-bargy around, you know, who's better and all that sort of thing. But I don't entirely know if Intel's strategy taking this particular track was really the right way to go about it. I think they still could have had the same message, but just done differently.
Well, maybe, but I would say by now Intel are desperate. They know they've really parked their chip design up a one-way creek or something without a paddle, and they're, you know, yeah, I guess so. What else can you do except go on the offensive and point out all the gimmicks that you can get on other people's PCs, because they don't even make the PCs; they just put a chip in them. And I think anyone who's used Apple products appreciates their simplicity and clean-cut, simple designs, and you know, they don't need hinged folding screens and touch screens on their laptops, because we all know that once you sit down to use a laptop, you don't use any of those gimmicky features.
Yeah, and the other thing I think is there's a bit of noise here, because, you know, the M1, I think there was a bit of rhetoric when it first came out that kind of suggested that it was like the death knell of, you know, Intel-based Windows PCs or whatever. And I think the M1 is great for the Mac. It's not necessarily great for the Windows PC. It's not a one-for-one comparison, because Windows and Windows PCs are doing their own thing. And if maybe it's just a question of maybe just the M1 represents a philosophical push to get Intel to look at things differently and perhaps, you know, properly compete and come out with something that is comparable, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I mean, I think Apple were pretty upfront about their, you know, split with Intel, and Intel must have known first, and Intel must have known that, you know, Apple were going down the chip design they were going, and in the 3 years or whatever it's been, they've done nothing. So, you know, they've stuck to their guns, and you know, it's great. What they were doing was great 20 years ago, and I think they've got caught with their pants down, to be honest. I think you make a good point. Apple are designing a chip for Apple users and the Apple ecosystem, and Intel just makes a chip to warm your lap while, you know, you sit a laptop on it. You know, so you choose what you want, what gimmicks, what features. You know, I'm long past being an Apple fanboy these days, but I think the reality is that there's no contest. Intel's desperate, and they're not going to win by throwing rocks at Apple.
Yeah, and I should also point out that they're probably facing competition from AMD and the Ryzen chips that are coming out, because they seem quite impressive as well. So, like you said, maybe all of this swirling around will just kick them into gear to actually, you know, get back on their game again.
Well, that's it. They're a long way behind now, but that's sometimes a good thing if it means that they find their feet and come back with an even better product in 2 or 3 years.